Welcome to another edition of A Voice to the Gentile Church. I'm Jim Wingerter. Next to me is Pastor Roger Diaz. Next to him is Dolores Lowe. So our president has decided that he's going to meet with the Saudi prince.
Yep, they're bringing lots of dollars. So he's strengthening his alliance with Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is promising to invest $1 trillion in the U.S. The Qataris.
So this prince is the one that was supposedly gave the orders to execute the reporter.
The reporter, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So he's pretty unpopular outside of Saudi Arabia.
I don't know. Money buys you a lot of influence and popularity, right? And
so
he's also young and hip.
And he does whatever he wants.
And he does, well, he's the head sheikh, right? He's the head of Saudi Arabia.
What do you do when you have trillions and you have leftover money?
You go and you buy influence everywhere you can. Go right up the street to Embry-Riddle. Go check out their buildings. Every single building that they have these huge buildings. They all have Arabic names on them, right? Because someone gave huge monies to the foundation, right? So they named a building after them. And in general, the Saudis are promising to invest $1 trillion in the U.S. The Qataris have been promising to invest billions of dollars into the U.S.
This is why international commerce is the whore.
You got it. Because it was interesting. I saw an article earlier this week where the Saudis refused to take Joe Biden's phone call. But they're showing up to the U.S. to talk to Trump.
Wow.
So yes, it is international commerce. Yes.
Yeah, but behind that, of course, it's the push towards global jihad, right? Mm-hmm. They have the money to pay for that. That's why they have the money. I might sound conspiratorial, but I believe the globalists has allowed them to have that type of wealth so that they can promote Islam.
Well,
Islam
has always been a tool of the globalists.
Yeah. They own huge reserves of oil. Mm-hmm. They are the controlling interest in OPEC, and OPEC is just an organization to set the price of oil, right? Do you really think that the barrel of oil goes from $80 a barrel to $130 a barrel because of demand? No, that's because OPEC opens or closes the spigot.
Well, the cartels hinges around the Saudis. They have total governance over the cartels.
Yep.
And that's also what's happening in South America right now. It's becoming clearer that it's not about narco-terrorism, our presence off the coast of Venezuela. It's about the oil.
Well, Venezuela threatened to dig to the side and steal oil
from Guyana.
Guyana.
That's what really started it, the Essequibo. But so what we know that the Saudi Arabians are radical Muslims.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They put on a veneer of being, somewhat moderate or even Western, but they're not.
Right.
They're Wahhabis.
Well, Saudi Arabia is still a country where up until recently, I think it's only the last couple of years, women were not allowed to drive. Right. Women can't leave the house without a male
Hasn't changed
family.
that much.
None of that has changed, right?
The Wahhabi doctrine is entrenched in Saudi Arabia. Mm-hmm. And I think Americans, people in general, need to understand what Wahhabism is and how incredibly profound and restricting, constricting Wahhabism is. Mm-hmm. And Saudi Arabia is the epicenter. It's the hub of Wahhabism.
Yep.
Wahhabism gave us the Muslim Brotherhood. So, in effect, the Saudi Arabians initiated the Muslim Brotherhood for what purpose? The Muslim Brotherhood exists for one purpose only. It is, well, actually, you can say two purposes, but mainly to prevent Israel from becoming the nation that the Bible says that they will be. When did the Muslim Brotherhood come into existence? Right at the beginning of the modern Zionist movement. Right, just simultaneously with it, the powers that be kickstarted the Muslim Brotherhood, and initially, right off the bat, they started pressing against Israel. Right, so we know about that slaughter in Hebron, right, in 1929. So the Muslim Brotherhood is all about preventing Israel from becoming that nation, that prophetic nation that the Bible says that there will be, and also to promote global jihad.
Yeah. So most Americans, it's really sad, don't even know that during World War II, the Muslims were on the side of the Nazis, right? Remember that?
Of course,
Yes.
yeah.
And most, you try to tell that to an American, and they've watched too many Indiana Jones movies, right? Where the the bad guys are. So yes, it's
We've bought into the lie of
Right.
conventional history, and conventional history is it's owned by the forces in this world that wants to keep everyone suppressed.
And part of what's going on right now is, in the past you've had that tension between Iran and the Saudis, where they were vying for who would take control. But right now Iran is really weak, right? We bombed them. We bombed their centrifuge. They're running out of money. They're really weak. So the Saudis are now, this is their day. This is their time. This is when they can come out and do whatever they want, right?
Well,
They've won the fight right now.
It's the ancient struggle between the Shiites and the Sunnis, right?
Yep.
But we tend, it's a deceptive thing that we embrace for ourselves. We self-deceive when we think or when we believe that Sunni Islam is any more moderate than the
Right.
Shiite
Absolutely.
Islam. It's absolutely not.
Well, I would also challenge, if I were to go onto any U.S. college campus and I mention Wahhabi, Sunni, Shiite, I would challenge that anybody would be able to even tell what the difference is, right? That in the U.S. mindset, there's just Islam. They don't see the distinction, right?
Right.
So, because they've been all indoctrinated. But anyway, along the lines with the U.S. getting trillions of dollars from the Saudis, a study came out today where, speaking of the Muslim Brotherhood, which the Muslim Brotherhood has this long history. In 75, during the Sadat government, they tried to overthrow the government because they didn't think Sadat was Muslim enough, right? He was being too secular. So this study came out that the Muslim Brotherhood in 75 initiated this 100-year effort to basically take over the U.S. and the West. So they have infiltrated government organizations. They have infiltrated our college campuses. We've seen the result of that recently, right? They infiltrate social media. So they have basically infiltrated everything, and they're on the move, right, to take out the West.
It's the spread of Islam.
Yeah.
The Islamic movements, and it's not only the Muslim Brotherhood at this point, all of the subgroups of that Islamic push for global jihad all began right around the same time, the turn of the 1900s, built momentum by the mid-1900s, really gained strength, and by the 1980s and 70s and 90s, you had CARE and all those other organizations that came into existence. But their purpose is one, which is to conquer the world.
Yep.
Now, who taught the Muslims? Who prepared them? Who trained them for such a conspiracy?
The globalists?
The globalists. The globalists have been tooling Islam for as long as Islam's been willing to be a tool of the globalists. They've been doing it. Remember, the globalists began their push towards their concept of a global government in the mid-1800s. Really
Right.
took off after World War I and II, and now they're bringing us World War III. It's all about globalization. And so Islam is simply a weapon, a tool, like I said, in the hands of the globalists. Muslim Brotherhood is now very powerful, had been very powerful, and murderous from the very beginning of their advent. So it was the Muslim Brotherhood who took down the towers in New York.
Right.
It was the Muslim Brotherhood who was involved in all of the Muslim atrocities that have occurred. October 7th, 2023, that was the Muslim Brotherhood, ISIS, Muslim Brotherhood. So we gotta keep it in perspective. The Muslim Brotherhood is that movement, and their purpose is global jihad by any means, available, and that's what it's all about.
Yep. unless you think this is solely the U.S., in France, they just did another study. Today's my day for studies. And they polled young Muslim men, 15 to 24 years old, right? And just polled them about what they believed. The result came in 6 out of 10 young Muslim men in France want Sharia law. They are more conservative and more fundamentalist than the previous generation. They support all the crazy organizations, Hezbollah, Hamas, all of that. They support all that. So France has been inundated.
Europe, right? So
Yep.
we know what happened after the Arab Spring. It's really the Islamic winter, but we know what happened.
Yep.
Europe became the destiny of these radical Muslims. And they literally marched all the way from the Middle East, from Iraq mostly, to Europe in some cases. But the globalists were behind this. The globalists were the ones who commissioned Obama to go to Cairo at the
I
beginning of
remember
his
that
administration,
bowing
2009, and basically say that the United States of America is now the largest Islamic country in the world. And he bowed down to the
Yep,
Muslim
I remember
Brotherhood.
that.
From that moment on, we began to see the Arab Spring. So who put Obama in Cairo? Well, the globalists did. They put him in power.
Right.
I'll never forget what Henry Kissinger said while he was still alive in 2009. He said, "This president will usher in the new world order." That's what he said. Almost just like that.
Yes. Yes. Uncanny.
Yes.
Yeah. So, no, his voice was a little deeper than mine. But you see, they're the ones that have empowered the Muslim Brotherhood. All of Islam is empowered by the globalists.
Yep.
And their purpose is to accomplish this goal by 2050, right? You mentioned that
Right.
before.
Yep.
So Islam has this idea that by 2050, Islam, Muslim Brotherhood, they will accomplish their goal, which is global jihad,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so who's also looking at 2050?
The UN.
The globalists,
Yes.
right? So they have an agenda. Their agenda is dovetailing
Right.
for 2050. 2050 is their big, their moment in the sun.
Right. Yep. Unless we think that this is only a French problem or, Dearbornistan that we have here in the United States, right? The city of Dearborn, Michigan, where the Islamic population is greater than the non-Islamic population and where they have Sharia law.
Man.
And where people who are not Islamic, if they complain at all, get told to shut up, sit down, or get out, right? So Governor Abbott in Texas has found that there are secret Sharia law courts in Texas that are overriding Texas law or U.S. law. He's also taken the stand of designating the Muslim Brotherhood and CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relationships, which is really just another terrorist front because they fund terrorism around the world. Both of those have now been designated as terrorist organizations. So here we are in Texas, where everything is bigger and better, the heartland of the U.S., right? Where the American flag is on every truck and, everybody, loves to wave their patriotism. And we have Sharia law courts going on.
Yeah. Well, Islam targeted Texas. In their
Yeah.
mind, if we can take Texas, we can take the whole country.
Right.
Which is true.
Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
Kind of, yeah, but
And then finally, a case that is near and dear to my heart. Nigeria, we're seeing a true genocide, right? Not the fake genocide that the left is calling on Israel, right? The true genocide is happening in Nigeria, where Christians are being slaughtered, right? And the West is silent. They're silent because A, they're Christians, and B, they're black. Let's face it, that's the truth.
Yeah.
And not even
It's silent racism.
Exactly. And not even the church is vocal about this. So of all the people in the world that I thought might stand up and say something, I never expected
Sure.
Nicki Minaj to be the person.
Should be a long list of people that are.
Yes. and of all the people to stand up and say something, Nicki Minaj. And I mean,
Yeah.
I have heard Nicki Minaj's rap songs and
Right.
frankly, they're like
Yeah.
But
Well, she's no Christian, but she
But
has
I'm
no
great-
love. She has
yeah.
no love for
yeah.
Islam.
And I am grateful that she is trying to shine a light on this, right? Because there's
Right.
nobody else doing it,
Right.
right?
Yeah. No.
I mean, there are TikTok videos of pastors in Nigeria that are just begging the West, going, they're killing us, they're slaughtering us, they're standing in their burnt out churches.
Well, I know a pastor that's been speaking about this for 25 years, as long as he's been a pastor, for 16 years, and without any, he doesn't have a voice, but he's been talking about it, at least one. This has been going on for a long time. This is
Yep.
going on 3 decades now.
Yep.
The butchery, the slaughter is unbelievable. Africa is a throwaway continent to the globalists.
Yes, it is.
And
That's
in
how they
many
feel.
cases, since the advent of Rhodesia was a country that was set up to as a test tube. It was an experiment to see how well the communism of Cecil Rhodes would succeed. The Rhodes Scholarship, right?
Yes.
So, Rhodesia was that experiment. They realized that they can do it, and they just scrapped the country, created horrible, horrible massacres throughout that country. So Africa has been a throwaway country. It basically has been a test, a place where they would experiment their
Remember
goals.
Bill Gates and his experimentation on, HIV experimentation, where he went to Africa to do that, Africa and India.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's the most horrible, horrible racism, and a lot of liberals and people on the left, they try to activate Black Americans about Israel, about Trump, but what's happening in Africa? I salute Nicki Minaj because she is at least drawing attention to it.
Right.
Yep.
Every Black, she was actually born in Trinidad, but every Black American should be entirely upset about what's
Right.
happening in
Yep.
Africa. That's something to be ideological about. So I'm not going to stop harping on this, but the world has treated the African continent, the continent of Africa, as just a throwaway
You
continent.
can say America doesn't care, but we're told by the media what to care about.
Right.
Our problem is we believe the media.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm praying, hoping that will come to an end. And the media has been calling what's been happening in Africa sectarian violence.
Right.
They would
They're
ravage
calling it that.
ravage entire cities with machetes purchased by Saudi Arabia. And that was happening 20 years ago. Shipments of machetes would come into African states and communities, Muslim communities, and would be given to the Muslims, and they would just butcher whole communities of Christians, and it would be called sectarian violence.
Yep.
And it's just amazing. It was amazing. Every time the African Christians stood up and fought back, they were featured by the media. The media would feature them in a negative way.
Right.
I mean, it's butchery. It's genocide. It's Islamic genocide.
And
Call it
nobody
what it
cares.
is.
Nobody cares. Except for trendy. You remember during the Obama administration when the schoolgirls got kidnapped, right? Yeah,
No.
the Nigerian schoolgirls that
Oh,
got
okay,
kidnapped.
yeah, I
right?
remember that.
That made the news. Why? Because it became a platform for Michelle Obama to say something, right? And to get her into the limelight.
Yeah, I
but
remember that.
That is still happening today. Schoolgirls are still being kidnapped today.
Oh,
And now we don't hear a word about it.
genital mutilations.
Mutilation, yep.
It's still happening. But again, these things are ignored. They're blacklisted. They're pushed aside because it's Africa. It's not. We have to be correct. It's not just that it's Africa. It's Islam. It's Islam. If Christians were doing this in Africa, it would have been pasted all over the news. But because it's Islam, again, I can't help but see conspiracies, efforts on behalf of Saudi Arabia, ultimately the globalists, to run experiments in Africa to see what they can get away with. How well would they succeed in destroying an entire continent, whole communities of people? And they've been succeeding. So don't you think they have that plan for the West? Of course.
Oh, yes.
Of course. Absolutely.
Yep. Okay,
Amazing.
So we have a question. And the question falls in line with what we've been talking
Right.
about already. Is America Islam's new Cordoba?
So this wasn't actually a question from someone. This was my question. In looking at all that's been happening, Mamdani in New York and President Trump entertaining the Saudi Arabians the way he did. Again, these are leaders in the Wahhabi movement. These are the people that push the Wahhabism beyond anything else. So, and him willing to accept $1 trillion in deals if he would go along with the Abrahamic Accords. In other words, if the Abrahamic Accords would succeed, here's what we would invest, $1 trillion. But it's contingent on the Abrahamic Accords. The Abrahamic Accords have everything to do with this T-shirt right here. It has everything to do with this. It's not the occupied territories, Judea and Samaria. So the Abrahamic Accords would keep that area, Judea and Samaria, occupied territory. So and actually the Abrahamic Accords would lead to an Islamic state, a Palestinian state in the midst of Israel. So our president was basically selling Israel out.
So it doesn't matter that Knesset annexed Judea and Samaria.
Well, there is going to be a great divide between Trump and Bibi, the United States foreign policy and Israel. It's going to happen. It's already happening. No one wants to fess up at it right now because it would upset the conservatives in the country. But Israel and this country is already, there's daylight, between both countries. And that should happen, needs to happen.
Yes.
Bibi is making some really bold statements right now, and that's good.
I wish more people would be able to go to Israel because we've been in Judea and Samaria over and over again.
Yeah.
And I have never seen a sign in Judea and Samaria that says Israeli citizens only. But I have seen a sign that says Islamic citizens only, no Israelis beyond this point.
So you're right. We know of the injustice. Mm-hmm. We know of the inequities, right? But you can't convince people of that unless they go see it.
Right.
Because people have a tendency to believe the media, right? And
a lot of Christian groups don't go into Judea and Samaria.
That's true, yes. You're absolutely
and then they go singing, I walked today where Jesus walked. No, they really didn't.
right.
Yeah. There are not many people that are bold enough to sit on a panel like this and speak the truth.
Right.
So you have this condition where the global media is so successful, so capable of spreading lies and effectively brainwashing people and leading people off cliffs. And that's what they're doing. They're succeeding. So let's talk about this reality here, this question. Is America Islam's new Cordoba? What's Cordoba? All right, so Cordoba, Spain. What happened?
That's when the Muslims came across Gibraltar and came into Spain.
The Umayyad conquest, right? So they conquered Cordoba real quickly, and for them it was a conquest.
Yes, it was.
They taken Cordoba. In their minds, was a stepping stone, the first step towards taking all of Al-Andalus, which is Spain and Portugal. But they didn't want only Spain and Portugal. Spain and Portugal was to be a stepping stone towards all of Europe.
Yep.
So this was when? When did this happen? Way back in 711, right? Mm-hmm. In the year 711 AD. So since then, Islam has had ideas of global conquest. In 711, there wasn't any knowledge by Islam of a Western hemisphere. They thought, well, if we can take, Al-Andalus and all of Europe, then the rest of the world will be easy. We already have Africa, we have the Middle East, we just have to deal with the Khans. Yep. The Khans came along after, but deal with the Orient, Far Orient. So it was about global conquest. So let's talk about the three W's of the Umayyad conquest. What was it? An effort to take Europe. Spain and Portugal initially as a springboard into all of Europe.
Right.
At that time, Spain and Portugal, Al-Andalus was the strongest the strongest, well, they were not one country or a series of states in Europe, and the rest of Europe was considered to be at that time easy to conquer. Their challenge was Al-Andalus. So their idea was to take it and then branch off and take all of Europe and ultimately take all the world. So Al-Andalus was their base from where they would launch out. So that's what that Umayyad conquest was all about. They took Cordoba first. So ultimately they wanted to defeat all of Spain, but they were defeated. They were defeated in 1031 AD. Later on, Isabella and Ferdinand, in the late 1400s, 1492 and onwards, expel the Muslims from Spain and Portugal. They consolidate all of the states in what became Spain and pushed out all of the Moors, but they were not just Moors, of course. They were Muslims.
And the sad thing, two things that stand out. One, it was one of the few times in history when the French army helped tremendously.
Yeah.
And two...
But this is very ancient. You're talking...
very, very ancient. Two, modern Spanish culture has romanticized this period. We even have a dish named after it.
They look back at Andalusia.
Yeah, and they think, it was so romantic. And we have a dish called Moros y Cristianos, the Moors and the Christians, right?
Yeah.
And it's... We just don't understand what was really going on.
This period in Europe, Spain and Portugal, was entirely the mindset of the Visigoths who ran most of southern Europe at that time. Were very different. They were German, dramatic, but they were very conservative, and they were heavy-handed, and they wanted nothing to do with Islam, and they didn't see Islam the same way that modern day Spaniards and Portuguese see Islam. What's that famous soccer player from Madeira? He's in the White House now, Ronaldo.
Ronaldo, yeah.
Ronaldo, okay. He's converted to Islam.
Yep.
And he hates Israel.
Yep.
He's from Madeira. He's probably Jewish in ancestry, but he hates. So that's a sentiment, and people like him are motivating many people. Gen Zers and so on. So there is this movement, of course, but what stemmed the Crusades? Of course, the Moors coming into Europe, and they're threatening all of Europe. And then the Mamluks taking hostile Muslim tribes. The Mamluks were later on taking Jerusalem, and so that stirred up all of Europe and motivated all of Europe to march against the Moors.
That's
the
another
Muslims.
Period of history that angers me, because everybody talks about how terrible the Crusades were. Nobody talks about why the Crusades took place, right?
Yeah. Now the Crusaders from Europe, they saw themselves as fighting the evil, the caliphate of Islam.
Right.
Islam had a caliphate going in Cordoba for a while, and so the effort on behalf of the Europeans were to push that out, and Spain and Portugal did their part. But ultimately, they wanted to march right into the Holy Land, and that happened. But along the way, the Crusaders, who were marching under the cross, destroyed many Jewish communities.
Yep.
Ravaged and destroyed many Jewish communities. They burnt synagogues to the ground, packed with people.
Well, that's part of the Islamic MO, right? You go into an area and you get rid of the history. Remember the Buddha statues?
Oh yeah.
That they blew up?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's Islam. But what I want to draw at right now is that there is another Cordoba, another Al-Andalus, and that is the United States of America. The Muslim powers, the to-be Caliphate of Islam, is seeing this country as Al-Andalus, the new Al-Andalus. So remember what happened after 9/11? You remember what happened, right?
Yeah, when we first...
9/11, and within 6 months, there was an effort on behalf of Islam to purchase land.
Yep.
Right there where the trade centers were, and build the Cordoba Mosque. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah,
I do.
I do.
It was a big push. And for them, it would symbolize their conquest, the beginning of their conquest. People need to research this. Of course, we know that there was a lot of pushback in regards to the prospect of they building a mosque right there at the site and call it the Cordoba Mosque. Some people actually knew history and said, "No, you're not going to do this. We know what Al-Andalus and Cordoba is all about for you." So there was sufficient pushback, and of course, our good friend Lowe could do some more of PJTTN, proclaiming justice to the nations. She was one of the people that got on a platform, she got on a microphone, and she said, "No, this cannot happen, this will not happen." She was a leading voice against that Cordoba mosque that was proposed to be built.
How about that?
Yeah, she
Good
was.
for her. Good for her.
And her voice was heard. Her voice was heard. So they didn't succeed to build a mosque, and we think, okay, so maybe okay, maybe that pushed them back, but it didn't.
Well, something that primarily the West that tries to be as ignorant as they possibly can be about history and religion doesn't realize is that according to Islamic law, once Islam has a foothold somewhere, that land is forever Islamic. So in the Islamic mind, Andalusia is still Islamic. Never mind that they were kicked out.
So from their point of view, they're actually taking the original Al-Andalus.
Right.
But there's a new Al-Andalus, and it's New York City. New York City is the new Cordoba.
Well, now they have their foothold, right?
No. So 9/11 was actually the first strike.
Right.
And that's why they wanted so much to build that mosque right there on the spot and call it the Cordoba Mosque. It was a statement. They were trying to symbolize something. They didn't get to build the mosque. They didn't need to because they're already here.
But remember, after 9/11, remember the Bush administration? What was their number one worry? Their number one worry was, don't treat the Muslims that are in our country bad. Don't be anti-Islam.
So that's the influence of the tool makers, the globalists, who wants to use Islam as a tool. You got to see this from a very broad perspective, right? So from a high altitude perspective, you begin to see that there are movements that begin to correlate. The globalists, their promotion of Islam, their protection of Islam. What was 9/11 really all about? Did the globalists actually know about 9/11? Did they plan it? These are questions that you have to ask. All right? So it could be that the trade towers was something that needed to be offered up to bring about this control of Islam in the West.
Well, I agree with you because the trade towers were a symbol of America's economic superiority in the world. Right? So now you took out the symbol of America in the world because, let's face it, overseas, the value of America is its economy, right? We have funded most of the socialist states in Europe, right? We fund their drugs, right? An American pays $1,700 for a drug that a European pays $30 for, right? Because we're funding all the research.
Thanks.
So our economic might is what identifies us in the world.
Correct.
So they took that out, right?
Right. We know already that Islam has been moving in on liberal Christianity. They haven't succeeded well with fundamental type Christianity, fundamentally based Christianity. But hold on, there are changes that are occurring in fundamental Christianity, even now, that will open the gates for Islam to come in. So how is their takeover? How is their taking of Al-Andalus, the new Al-Andalus? How is that going? So let's think about that. How are they faring in this takeover? Well, you mentioned earlier that they're in our universities, right? They've purchased so many of our higher education facilities.
And they're brainwashing.
Institutions. And the brainwashing is it's rabid. It's everywhere, just about every university. Even smaller universities like our local university here, there are so many Islamic professors that are in there, and they're pushing that whole taking of this. It's a takeover. It is a hostile takeover. The mosque that's down on Goldenrod, they're fending up their property. They're building walls and they're arming it up. Well, they're building protection around it. So they're preparing for what's inevitable. Islam is here not to bring their peaceful religion to bear. They're here to take over. And we have to see this. Our president's, Donald Trump's behavior in the last week or so with Saudi Arabia is alarming. Absolutely alarming. Not only that he's befriending the leaders of the Wahhabi movement, the worst form of Islam. Not only that, but he is selling out Israel. He's selling out Israel. And it's a really wonderful thing that since October 7th, 2023, Israel has grown strength. And they're able now to say to Trump, no, we're not going to go that route. We're going to continue to be strong. We're not going to settle for a two-state solution. It is because of the war that they had with Hamas, Hezbollah, and all of the other factors that they're able to plant their feet now and say no. And that's a wonderful thing. That's where Israel needed to be from the beginning. 5 years ago, Israel was weak and feeble in that sense and would capitulate quickly. Well, they're not capitulating much now. They have their set of problems. There's no question about it. They have their set of vulnerabilities, but they're much stronger now than they were before. God has moved in the Israeli people in these wars to strengthen them, to give them a sense of, I am with you, Israel. And we're seeing that. But Trump is the consummate deal maker, right? He wants to go down in history as the greatest president ever. He doesn't want to be on Mount Rushmore. He wants to be on Mount Trump. He wants to create his own mountain.
Yeah. And he thinks that everybody can be motivated by money. He absolutely thinks that he can motivate. He thinks that everybody has a monetary interest, and that if you can give those people their monetary interest, then you can make the deal, like you said, right? What he doesn't realize is that there are Muslims aren't going to be motivated by money. They're motivated by ideology, right? And there are other people that are motivated by ideology above everything else.
I'll give Trump his come up to. He is very sharp, very sharp. You know what he's doing down in the Southern Caribbean. This effort at taking the oil from Venezuela, securing the oil in the Essequibo, and framing it as narco-terrorism. Very clever. I mean, you got to give him that. That was really shrewd. And so now he can just annihilate anyone, threaten Venezuela, have Maduro come to his feet, bow down at his feet, using that narco-terrorist cover. But it's really all about the Saudi Arabians. Because who will benefit from free flow of oil from Venezuela and Guyana? The Saudi Arabians. The Prime Minister of Guyana, who is a Muslim, has already opened up to Saudi Arabia. Guyana, the Essequibo, both offshore and inland, has almost as much oil as Venezuela. So it's really about Saudi Arabian interests in the West. The cartels all belong to Saudi Arabia. And Trump is doing their bidding by going after Maduro, right? So Maduro is gone. He is gone. It's only a matter of time. One way or the other, he's gone.
Having lived in communism, I'm more than happy for him to be gone.
But I have no problem with that. I just want people to be honest. Don't say it's about the drugs and put yourself out there as being so concerned about people dying because of fentanyl and cocaine. That's not true. You don't care about those people, Trump. You care about your deals with the oil companies. And that's fine. If that's where you are, be bold enough to come out and say it. And I expect that boldness from him. But it's about the oil. It's not about drugs.
He did say that about the Iraq war.
Yeah.
He was very upset that we went into Iraq, we did all this, we expended all this money, and got nothing for it.
Right. So how much money, I mean, you might have a better idea at this than I do. How much resources in terms of money do you think went into staging this incredible force down in the Caribbean? From this force
that's minuscule.
But this force is from Puerto Rico. They built up a base in Puerto Rico, and they have all these ships and all these things.
Minuscule.
But it
Minuscule
didn't.
in
Minuscule like what? A couple of billion?
It's not that much.
So let's say it's minuscule in terms of trillions. Let's say
So here's the thing.
let's say it's 5 billion. You think Trump will invest that money without a return? He's going for the return.
So I disagree with you on this situation helping the
Saudi
Saudis,
Arabians,
right?
The oil cartels, right?
Simply because currently Venezuela and Guyana are not part of OPEC.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have more oil production out of that area, that'll force the price of oil down, which is negative to Saudi Arabia. Now, that does not say that Saudi Arabia couldn't come in and convince Venezuela and Guyana to join OPEC, and
But,
then they would control that
Saudi
oil
Arabia,
also, right?
Saudi Arabia, the oil cartels associated with Saudi Arabia won't have to do it. Trump will do it.
Yeah, just
Trump will. I am convinced that the oil companies are just waiting for Maduro to be pushed out. They'll
so
put
I do
in place,
agree with that.
Yeah.
That the oil companies are like,
they
because-
would put in
Get
place.
that bum out of there.
yeah,
They would put in place a more compliant government in Venezuela, and then we can do business.
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia is involved. Saudi Arabia was in Trinidad 2 weeks ago, getting ready to get involved with the oil trade, with the oil industry, because Trinidad is an oil service type island. We've been doing it for 40 years. So Saudi Arabia was down here 2 weeks ago speaking to Kamala Basetta, the prime minister, preparing the way for when ultimately Guyana and Venezuela becomes part of the oil cartel. They're vesting into it. It's only a matter of time. So Islam is taking over. There is a real effort at taking over the entire world. And so that doesn't sound good at all.
it's horrendous. I watched this young girl, again, TikTok, right? I don't have TikTok on my phone because I'm not allowed to, but it does come into your Facebook feed whether you want it or not. I watched this young girl right after Mandami got elected in New York, and she was just ecstatic. And we're gonna have Sharia law. And I'm like,
She wasn't Muslim, right?
no, but I'm like, oh my gosh, do you realize what is coming
Oh,
out of your
my.
mouth?
No, she doesn't. No, she doesn't. That element in our society, my God, have mercy upon them.
Yeah.
They are doubly clueless. They're ultra clueless, and they're tools of the tools that Islam is. How could you live like that?
Yep.
How could you live? But our universities are producing people like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're churning them out. Absolutely amazing. So there's a takeover. It's happening. It's well on its way. It's hard to say how far along we are, but we're well on our way to 2050. 2050, the year that Islam plans to rule the world, 2050 is a UN or globalist milestone for their government, for their great, global kingdom. So clearly, if the globalists are pushing 2050, and so is Islam, there's a dovetail, like we said earlier, right?
Yeah. So, question for you. We know that the globalists are going to establish their government. We also know that Islam is going to be a dominant religion on the earth.
Okay.
Are they going to eat each other? What's
So
going to happen?
here is what we've talked about before. What would it take, like Westerns? You remember the old Westerns? The Apaches, the Indians, right? They weren't Indians, but they were called Indians. And they would be overwhelming. They would surround a wagon, a circular wagon, and the Apaches are everywhere. And what would you do? You'll kill the chief, because once you kill the chief, what happens?
Everybody disperses.
Everybody scatters, right? So Islam would be easy to subdue. Destroy Mecca.
Oh,
Right.
yeah, you're right.
Who has the bombs? Islam don't have the bombs.
Right.
Who has the bombs? The globalists do. They have thousands of them. And they have the weapons that we don't even know about. They can subdue Islam in minutes. Literally in minutes. Much of Saudi Arabia is dust or ashes. And that's the end of Islam. You destroy Mecca, Medina, the United Emirates, Qatar. You hit those places hard and strong. There's no more Islam.
Right.
It's done. The seed of it might be there, and I believe the seed of Islam will live into the millennial kingdom. But you've just crushed Islam, if you can do that. And who can do it? What force in the world that exists that can do that? Well, of course we know. The ones who control the switches, and they certainly control the switches. The only problem with the globalists and having those switches is Russia. And that's why Russia is on the chopping block right now.
Right.
Russia has been on the chopping block of the globalists for decades. So once Russia is done away with, they have every weapon across the face of the planet. China is just waiting in the wings, literally waiting in the wings to get on board with the globalist agenda, right? So Islam does not have a future in this global government. Nevertheless, is it a part of the Antichrist movement? It certainly is. We don't believe that Antichrist is an individual. The Bible doesn't tell us that Antichrist is an individual. John spoke about the movement of Antichrist, a spirit of Antichrist, so to speak. What about Islam ties it to Antichrist? Well, that's what we have. We have at least one scripture reference to read. In 1 John chapter 2, Jim, 21 and 22, we'll recognize here that Islam bears the identifier as Antichrist. Is it the Antichrist? No. It is certainly a component of the Antichrist, a very important component of the Antichrist. And it's a tool, again, it's a tool to the spirit of Antichrist. The spirit of Antichrist is tied in to this world government and the false prophet that's coming into existence. Isn't it quintessential the devil to have people look for an individual Antichrist when it is not an individual, it is a collective of people?
Yes.
That's the devil, and he has people completely duped. So many Christians are just waiting in the wings to identify the Antichrist. You know, Elon Musk, he's the Antichrist. For sure, he's the Antichrist. I got pictures of Elon Musk with an upside-down cross, with Baphomet. He had that red outfit on at some point, and he came out donning this red outfit with demonic symbols on it. Is he demonic? Probably. Is he the Antichrist? No. Folks, don't be duped. The Antichrist is a movement, and Islam is certainly a part of it. Now, we're going to read this here in a moment. What is one of the attributes a couple of attributes of Antichrist? Well, they don't believe that Jesus is God.
Right.
They don't believe that Jesus is the Son of God. They don't believe in God having a son who is divine. And it's a lying spirit.
It says that on the top of the Mosque of Omar in Jerusalem.
God has no son.
God has
Allah is one, he has no son.
Yep.
So Muslims today, for the sake of taqiyya, lying, they would say, we believe that Jesus is a son of God. Some of them even say he is the son of God, but he's not God. So what exists on that mosque? God has no son, right?
Right.
So let me say this. Islam has no reservations about lying because they are allowed to lie, right?
Right.
There's an actual doctrinal position that says that you can lie if it is for the sake of jihad. It's called, of course, it's called taqiyya. So the lying spirit is one aspect of Antichrist.
Right.
I've encountered Antichrist on so many different levels. I mean, I've encountered it on so many different levels. Antichrist will always go after the anointing. Spirit of Antichrist might say Jesus is the Son of God. May even say that Jesus is God, but they lie. The spirit of Antichrist is the lying spirit. So how could you trust someone who lies when they say that we believe that Jesus is God or the Son of God? And they always counter the anointing. They oppose the anointing.
Right.
And when John said what he said in 1 John chapter 2, that was his contention, that you don't listen to these people because he said in other verses that you have an anointing that came from God. You don't need to listen to these unanointed people.
Right.
But the spirit of lying, the spirit of lies, is one of the important aspects of Antichrist, which exists in Islam. Islam is, in terms of a global entity that lies the most, I think they lie more than CNN.
Well, I mean, we just saw evidence of that, right, during the New York elections. Mandani got up there and he said, right after 9/11, my auntie had problems. She wouldn't leave her house with her because she was afraid with her hijab on because she was afraid. He didn't have an aunt in New York at that
Yeah,
time.
it's just- to them, again, when you have a whole world religious order, such as Islam, that takes the position that for the sake of promoting Islam, you can lie. I mean, think about that.
Yeah.
The devil can really work in that context, and he does.
Yeah.
So the spirit of Islam engages with that taqiyya, and it brings it into Antichrist. So read that verse for us.
John says, I have not written to you because you do not know the truth, but because you do know it, and because no lie is of the truth. Who is the liar but the one who denies that Jesus is the Messiah? Mm-hmm. This is the Antichrist, anti-Messiah, the one who denies the Father and the Son.
Yeah. So you see the connection of the lion spirit and Antichrist. Mm-hmm. Islam initially, and I know Islam because I grew up under its oppression, Islam never took the position that Jesus was the Messiah. Right. Initially, they were saying, now they lie so much, but initially they were saying that he was a prophet.
Right.
And it took them centuries to come to that position, right? Mm-hmm. Initially, they said, well, he was a good man.
Yep.
He was a good Muslim, they would say, a long, long time ago. And then he became a good prophet, a prophet. Well, under the pressures of trying to be accepted in the West, he's become the Messiah. They have no problem saying he's the Messiah. No, they say it. But do they know him as Messiah? No, they don't.
No.
And they don't mean it. They're lying. It's all taqiyya.
Yeah.
So, you can recognize Antichrist in Islam for sure, but Antichrist is a broad spectrum.
And I mean, it's beyond their text says Jesus is not the Son of God. It also says Jesus was never crucified, right? Because they claim that
Never resurrected.
never crucified, never resurrected. He was hidden, and somebody else was crucified in his place. That's what the Quran says.
But you're dealing with a lion spirit that can adapt as necessary. Today, Muslim apologists take a completely different approach. They don't have any problem saying, he resurrected, but he's not God.
Yeah. And I mean, this isn't a new thing in Islam, right? Because Muhammad, every time he started out by thinking that he could convince all the Jews to come with him, right? The Jews
Medina,
would become, And then when the Jews wouldn't come, then all of a sudden it changes, right? The Jews are no longer good people of the book. Now they need to be killed. And every time they encounter oppression from, somebody holding them back, the text changes.
Absolutely. That's been the mode of operation for Islam from its very conception. There's a real possibility that there was never a Muhammad, and he was invented. That's a real possibility. There are serious people out there doing research on that, and they're writing about it. You must look it up. Real serious research is being done. It's possible that it was a huge invention, another lie, that he never really actually existed. But that's a whole different topic. I'm not going to get into that because I don't know enough about it. But I do know that today there is a revival in the Muslim world. When I say it can't be a revival, we're dealing with people that are beginning to accept Jesus as Lord. There are visions. People are having Christophacies and theophasies. God is appearing to people and confirming that Jesus is the Messiah. I want to get involved in that evangelism. That's an evangelism that I can get involved in. Muslims are coming to Christ. It's happening in Iran. It's happening in Pakistan. But Pakistan is oppressed. But it's happening in the most oppressed Muslim countries. People are coming to Christ. It's happening. Muslims are rejecting Islam. In Iran, 35,000 mosques have been shut down. You don't hear about this, but 35,000 mosques has closed their doors. Mostly women in Iran are rejecting Islam. They're pulling off their head scarves. What do you call it?
Remember the young lady that was killed because she refused to wear her scarf?
But that's so 10 years ago. Yeah. What has happened in Iran since then is there's a real upswell. Mm-hmm. And women in Iran are just rejecting Islam. The Islamic government is horrified as to what's happening. They can't seem to stop these people. A few weeks ago, a top Iranian official, his family had a wedding. Someone in the family got married, and his wife showed up without a hijab, bold. And people in the wedding were looking at her like, can't believe she's doing that. It's happening, and these people are accepting Jesus. And you know what? They're accepting Jesus based on the reality of who God is. They're not looking for the Western Jesus. The Western Jesus isn't exactly who they're looking at. They're looking at the biblical Jesus. And I am convinced that all of these Muslim people, Muslim countries even, that are beginning to turn to Jesus, I am convinced that they will end up supporting Israel, standing with Israel.
Boy,
the
that's
Iranians...
rough. That'll be rough.
Well, it'd be good.
Yeah.
The Iranians that are coming to Jesus, they're all looking to Israel. They're all looking to Israel.
There are videos on the internet of Muslims that
Yeah.
are supporting Israel.
Yeah, that's evidence that it's the real God.
Yeah.
It's happening, and that's a wonderful thing. So while Islam is sort of losing its focus, trying to gain control of the world with Turkey and all of its lies, people are turning away from it. I've heard many testimonials, and amazingly, most of them are women, just recognizing that Islam is a lie, and they're turning away from it.
Yeah, makes it sad when you look at the young college-educated women in the U.S.
Yeah. But you know, I grew up in a Muslim community, 7 years in a Muslim community, and they were only 15% of the community. The other, 85% or so were Hindus, but 15% were Muslims. And I lived under that oppression. I lived under it, and I know what that's all about. The hate, the venom, the murderousness. It governs your soul when you live in a community like that. So I don't take lightly these people that are turning away from Islam. They're doing something that's incredible. To break away from Islam in a Muslim community, it takes a lot of determination. But people that are being born again, being filled with the Holy Spirit, they have that drive. Here in the West, we've lost it.
Well, you said something key a minute ago. You said that they're not worshiping the Western Jesus, right?
No, the
You can't
Western
stand
Jesus
with
is
the
different.
Western Jesus, right?
The Western church has lost its compass. We're focused on, like you said it earlier, we're focused on things that are not really relevant. We're weak and we're feeble. We're like the Laodicean church. We think we're rich, but we're not. We're wretched and poor, according to what Jesus said. We're lukewarm. So we are that Laodicean church. Even in the Bible-believing South, the Bible Belt, we're becoming more and more lukewarm. It's because we're turning away from the Word of God. We're turning away from God's Word, and we're becoming the very thing that we hate. So what can we take away from this? Islam is rampaging across the world. It is wealthy, it is powerful, it is Saudi Arabia. It's able to buy presidents. President Trump was basically purchased yesterday in the White House before all the world to see. He just wanted to flaunt that $1 trillion price tag for Israel. He sold out Israel for $1 billion, or at least he thinks he did. That deal's not going to go through. Hamas is not going to go with the deal that Trump signed off
Right.
on. They're not going to go for it.
That's true.
So Trump's making a complete fool of himself, and doubly so in trying to strike a deal with Saudi Arabia for $1 trillion. So where does that leave us? We have to recognize the fallacy of what's happening in the West. We have to recognize, secondly, that Islam is prevailing in the
Right.
West.
Right.
We have to stop putting our hope in Donald Trump,
Right.
in this great conservative renaissance. We can't put our hope there. It is a lie. It is a farce. It will come to nothing. In fact, it will. You said it one time in a post. It will go so far right that it will end up left.
Yep.
And
will
we
unite.
see that. So people that are suddenly hating on Israel and susceptible to Islam, like Tucker and these other people. What's the other guy's name with the Spanish name?
Fuentes.
The
Nick
white
Fuentes.
supremacist with a Hispanic name. These people susceptible to Islam.
Yep.
I mean, they are on the crust of embracing Islam. I'm pretty convinced that Tucker has already recited the Shahada. I'm convinced he has. In his mind, he can be a Christian and recite the Shahada because it's all about synchronism, right? We all have the same God, and so it's just those virus, Christian Zionists. They're the problem. In Ethiopia last week, there was a fairly strong Christian Zionist movement there, very strong. They started burning down their places of meeting, their church buildings. The Muslims are doing that. The time will come when true biblical Christian Zionists will come under the fire of Islam, because we are actually on the same level as Israel to them.
Right.
We represent the same threat to them.
Yeah, and I mean, the pattern is there. The pattern is the same. They come in, they act nicely, then they gain majority, and then they oppress everybody else, right? That's
the force there. It's jihad. It's takeover.
That's the way the pattern goes.
We have to be, like I said, we have to be willing to accept the fact that our country has been invaded. Mm-hmm. There's a hostile takeover occurring. It's time for the American people to wake up, and the only salvation is that we will return to God on a very fundamental basis. We would reject woke Christianity altogether, accept what is biblical, consider ourselves a Christian nation with teeth, with the Word of God. Mm-hmm. We need to do this, and that's what we need to procure us, to keep us standing. Otherwise, we're going to fall to Islam, I'm afraid.
Well, that's our program. If these questions raise other questions in your thinking, and they surely do, you are invited and asked to raise those questions with us. And the easiest way to do that is to email us at voice@buildupzion.org. Again, voice@buildupzion.org. And until next week, shalom.